Good morning, Bucknutters. Sorry for the late kickoff. It is Tuesday, August the 27th, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. This just in, it's game week. Thank God. I don't know about you guys and you ladies, but I am ready for real football. Shocker, I'm also ready to read you an ad. Fellas, do you want your grooming to... Fellas, do you want your grooming routine to be a one-and-done deal? Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and other parts are over thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep you trim from 12 to 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls Bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger, a trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code BUCKNUTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code BUCKNUTS at manscaped.com. You guys know this. Manscaped is an incredible company. The reason they keep advertising with us is because you guys keep buying their content and their products. Get 20% off, again, free shipping, BUCKNUTS at manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping. And we bring in the men of the hour, Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter. Gentlemen, you guys have already been on the road for some high school football. This weekend begins real football as Ohio State will host the Zips of Akron. Not sure that's going to be a pleasant experience for our in-state foes, but I imagine their athletic department will have a little more cash in the booty. However, we're going to work in reverse order here. Over the weekend, Ohio State got a commitment from an offensive lineman out of an area called the DMV, Jayvon McFadden from Riverdale Baptist High School, committed to Ohio State. Big fella, interior offensive lineman. Bill, we've been talking about him kind of off and on. I mentioned yesterday that he had an interesting Final Four, but if you kind of put it all together, it makes sense. It was Ohio State, South Carolina, Colorado, and Maryland. Maryland is the home state school now with some NIL money, so they are going to be more competitive for the DMV. Colorado, Dion has a nice presence there in the D.C. area. Jordan Seaton, by the way, D.C. guy. And then South Carolina, we do not have to go into detail about what South Carolina has done in the DMV. They got the number one defensive player out of there last year that Ohio State really wanted. Also got Nicholas Harbor, probably the fastest big dude in the country out of there, the number one receiver among all freshmen last year. Bill, Jayvon McFadden, where does he measure up for you?
Well, he measures up, first of all, as a very nice addition and a very needed addition. You know, they only had 2 offensive linemen in the 2025 recruiting class, and
they want to
get at least 4. So, you know, getting the third one is big, and it also fills a need, I guess you'd say, specifically in that they have one of the top tackles in the country, Carter Lowe, who Mark saw on Friday night. They have a center in the class in Jake Cook, who I will be seeing but haven't seen yet. I was at a different game on Friday night. So now they've got what they recruited Jayvon as a swing man, a guy that could play maybe center, maybe tackle, but very likely guard. You know, he was about 6'4", 270 between his sophomore and junior seasons. He's a little bit bigger than that now. He's about 300 pounds now. Between 6'4" and 6'5". And again, I think he's going to end up as a guard at Ohio State, but they look at him as a swing man, a guy that could, you know, we'll see how much bigger he gets and how he develops and all. But as you mentioned, he picked Ohio State over Colorado, Maryland, South Carolina. It was no surprise. I mean, we've talked about this for a long time, that Ohio State was the school to beat. It's the only official visit he made. And finally, you know, he went ahead and announced his commitment to Ohio State. So a nice addition, not a surprising one, a nice one we expected. And it's an out-of-state guy. We've talked a lot about Justin Fry not getting the out-of-state offensive lineman. Well, he's an out-of-state guy, so he's got 2 Ohioans, and he's got an out-of-state offensive lineman in the class. And by the way, he was the last uncommitted player that made I should say, uncommitted offensive lineman that made an official visit to Ohio State. The Buckeyes really were going after, so it's good to get that guy.
There's no question. Big pickup, and we've given him a bunch of problems, but let's be honest. We need to be fair and give Justin Fry some credit for this like Bill did. If we're going to give it, we got to take it on both ends. Very happy about getting McFadden into the mix. All right, Mark. There's some chatter on here. A very well-known Ohioan, Ryan Montgomery, was injured this weekend. Hurt his knee, and then the Findlay High School future Georgia Bulldog, one-time Ohio State offer, and whose brother's on the team, Luke, blew his knee out, I believe, and is missing the season. Ironically, at the same time, or a little bit earlier, your son, who we've talked about a lot here, got injured a few plays into the season. And normally we wouldn't talk about something like that, but it was pretty impactful. So I wanted you to kind of share where that went down and kind of how you're dealing with that, because we all got the picture, and it was not the picture you want to get of a taller quarterback getting hit on the base of his knee.
Yeah, I think as parents and, the fans here, they know us. We kind of talk about our personal lives every now and then. When your kids play a sport, any sport, that lightning can strike, good or bad. You could have a great moment, or you could have that devastating moment. And the irony of the Ryan Montgomery injury is DJ is a quarterback a lot like Ryan. He'll be a big, tall kid, kind of looks like Ryan. I've actually joked that if God was listening, hey, let's clone this kid after Ryan Montgomery. He had one of those devastating injuries where he was hit on his knee on the 5th play of the season and fractured his femur. That's, obviously, if you know about the femur, that's a devastating, injury and place to get hit.
It's no small bone.
Yeah. So we are still awaiting an MRI, and we're still praying that it's not the worst. We think we've avoided the ACL, which of course is the dreaded, which you don't want to see. I don't know if Dan wants to put this on the screen, but he's welcome to. That's there for you to share. There you go. When you see that type of hit, and if you see the Ryan Montgomery injury, it's very similar. He takes an awkward hit. This is what you fear as a parent. And you know what? This is a part of the sport. When you call kids warriors for going back out there, when you rehab and you go back out there after something like this, you really appreciate, the love and desire for this game. And of course, Ryan Montgomery and my son both worked very hard in the offseason like every other kid. And I think that's the other thing you deal with. And, being a parent, I think it hurts you as much as anybody. So sharing that with, the Bucknutters that this game, we all love it, but there's another human side to it that every now and then strikes. And of course, be back better than ever. But yeah, devastating for the Montgomery family. And I'm sure there had to be 100 kids this weekend that happened to, all over the state. And it's going to happen again next weekend. And I joked with my son, I'm like, you play fantasy football? You know what those first couple of weeks are like. It's bombs going off everywhere with some of the best players in the world. And mom's a physical therapist, so he has the best treatment. So we're not going to, delay and get him going and get him back on the hardwood football field, whatever he ends up doing when he's done with his rehab.
I thought it was very interesting that the Montgomerys actually reached out to you. You showed me a copy of the text. I thought that was just an extremely classy move. You want to share that?
Yeah. I mean, 2 dads going through the same amount of pain. It was nice to share that, but yeah, I really feel for their family on another level than I would usually feel for another kid being injured. Senior year, boy, the amount of time and preparation that culminates on that year and your teammates. So prayers for Ryan and his family and anybody else who's going through this type of an injury.
Yeah, definitely brutal. And what you said was so true. And I've said this to my children when it comes to football: fear the scroll. And that means it's kind of an outdated concept now that everyone has everything on their phone. But kids, I don't know if you knew this, back in the day, breaking news for sports would scroll across the bottom, kind of like Manscaped. And you'd say, oh, here's my Cowboys fan, Deron Bland out 6 to 8 weeks. I'm like, great. Season down the drain once again. So not cool, but I digress. All right. Definitely wanted to share with that kind of a human side of things, because and I've said this before, if you have children who are athletes or you're involved in any of this, injuries are an enormous deal, especially when it comes to football, but across the board. If you go behind the scenes and talk to any coaching staff about the news of the day, one of the news items they will give you is the injured guys on their team, who's coming back when, how they fit into everything, and kind of how think about the receivers at Findlay. They aren't going to be getting a pass from a Georgia quarterback. I know that. And that's no offense to the backup. And if they are, Findlay, powerhouse. If you have backup quarterbacks with Georgia offers, I am out of line. So definitely a bummer. All right, Bill, let's switch to something a tad more positive and pitch it forward a little bit. And that is Phillip Bell, wide receiver out of USC, making a commitment in the near future. Said he's down to two schools, basically, Ohio State and USC. Mentioned Washington as a suitor that's still in touch, but I got the sense from his quotes that he was one or the other. Bill, is this a guy going to USC who's just trying to keep Ohio State in the mix so it's a nice, fancy announcement? Or do you really think Ohio State is pushing for his commitment down the stretch here?
Well, I've gotten to know Phillip pretty well through the recruiting process, and he told me long ago that in all likelihood he's going to end up at either Ohio State or USC. He has offers from schools all over the country, and he has entertained Washington and all, but it's been either USC or Ohio State for a long time, and that's what it's going to be on Saturday, one of the two. We've talked about the horrible situation that he had with his mother passing away, and he's going to do it on a yacht party on Saturday, make his announcement, and that had been planned. He and his mom were born on close dates, August 25th and August 30th. So they had planned to do some type of announcement somewhere right in that time period. And then when his mom passed away, he ultimately ended up saying, I'm going to go ahead and do it, make my announcement on August 31st. That is, of course, next Saturday, this coming Saturday. Which way is he going to go? That's a tough call right now. In fact, I'm not ready to make that call right now. On one hand, I know he's really liked Ohio State for a long time. And if you're a wide receiver, who doesn't like Ohio State if you're a great wide receiver? On the other hand, he's got USC right there as his, I guess you'd say, hometown school, so to speak. And then I kind of think of sometimes with his mom passing away, is he more likely to just to go ahead and stay closer to home? So, right now, I think, we're going to wait and see which one he's going to. And I don't think it's been a particularly easy decision for him, especially going through with what he's had to go through the last number of weeks and all.
All right, people. Guess what time it is? Another ad. Shocker, there's people wanting to advertise on the show game week. They know who's here. They also know that Patrick Murphy is a big fan and supporter of Joy Mode. I think I speak for most men when I say we want to have better sex, and for the sake of our partner, we may need to have better sex. The issue? Over-the-counter pills contain unregulated chemicals, suggest unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. But that's why we've partnered with our friends over at Joy Mode. All natural, science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. Trademark product, the sexual performance booster, aptly named, is every man's solution for increased performance. Redefine your intimacy and go to tryjoymode.com. tryjoymode.com. You get 20% off with the code Bucknuts. 20% off and free shipping at tryjoymode.com. All right, let's try and get to some questions. All right, Bill, I was going to ask this one. Jerome Miles, he's good at football. The wide receiver starred as, is it Corner Canyon and Draper, Utah? Is that right?
That is right.
Beat IMG Academy, and let's just say he looked like he was very impressive. Short passes taken long, passes over the top. I saw him catch a post and split the seam beautifully. However, I've also seen some crystal balls roll towards Utah. Your thoughts, William?
Well, several things. His team, Corner Canyon, opened up the season with a game that I watched. I watched the stream of some of the game against one of their rivals, and they won quite easily. Then you go to the next weekend, a whole nother game when you then play IMG. They did have them at home. IMG traveled there, and Corner Canyon won 35-34. And it was a big game, as you mentioned, for Jerome Miles. I mean, he's the real deal. If you do what he did against IMG, I think you warrant 5-star consideration or rankings. He's got Utah, Ohio State, Texas A&M. Those are the three schools that he has told me for quite some time are his top three. I think I would agree that right now Utah is the school to beat. But he has also said he's going to make an official visit to Ohio State. He had not gotten the exact date pinned down. He wants to make it during a night game. Obviously, if you live in Utah, it's more expedient not to try to get to a noon game at Ohio State. So he hasn't totally narrowed that down. Brian Hartline is going to let him know when the night game will be. And providing he makes that official visit, I think that Ohio State could make this interesting. We'll see how that goes.
Mark, Preston Bowman. When we talk about Preston Bowman and people talk about adding to the class, trying to keep this as diplomatic as possible. If a guy is not at the top of the food chain and is already committed to Kentucky, does it make sense for him to commit to Ohio State and get in a long line at receiver? I almost think the guy should just go. He'd probably be better off going and throwing up an incredible year at Kentucky and transferring. It's the modern era. What would you do?
Boy, that's a tough question. And it's just same thing with the Cleveland Heights running back, Marquise Davis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could come in here and be a second or third running back and fight your way to the top and bet on you or bet on me, as they say. And that's a tough decision to make because we preach all the time on this program, go play for Brian Hartline, and he'll develop you into the best possible player you are. And if you are wide receiver 4, you'll still get your look at the NFL. Maybe wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 are first-round draft picks like in the past. You know, there's no shame in the game of someone who's a third-round pick who's maybe the third or fourth guy, which you may see that actually play out in this roster. But that's tough mentally to do. You know, you're thought of as the third or fourth fiddle. You don't get the spotlight, and I think we don't talk about this much on this program, but every player has some sort of ego where they want to be, thought of and respected. And there's nothing the matter with that. Some of them take that too far and they get a little cocky and overboard with it. But I think the humblest of men want to be at least respected as the number one tackle on their team or number one defensive end on their team. So positions like receiver, the word diva and receiver has gone together for a while, and this is no, indictment on anyone we're talking about, but those guys usually want the ball and they want it a lot and they want to be able to show off their skills and make those highlight plays. So I don't think there's any wrong decision there. I think if he wanted to be the number one at Kentucky, God bless you. You'll have a great, like you're saying, you'll go down there and put some numbers up and you'll end up where you need to end up and you'll be coached well. But going to Ohio State, that path is a little different. And, now that we're taking more of a developmental receiver, you're going to see this type of mentality that we're looking for. Hey, who is a dog that says, yeah, I will come in as the third or fourth guy. And you know what? In a couple of years, I'll be the one. And those other guys you thought were so, great, I'm going to eat them up. And that mentality is, boy, it's hard to find. But if you find it, that's who will say yes to that type of deal.
You make hold on a sec, Bill. You make a great point there. There was a receiver in the last few years that was committed to Ohio State who was excellent, but wasn't going to be the top receiver in the class, probably would have been third. And I spoke to someone very close to him, and everybody around this guy, he was not an Ohioan, everybody around him was telling him, don't go to Ohio State. And he was saying, no, I think I can make it there. I think I can do it. Even the guy I talked to, like, why are you going to Ohio State to be the third fiddle when you can go to X and be the number one guy, yada, yada, yada. So I guess it's a mentality from where you start, but kind of which challenge you want to face. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fair if you look at Ohio State in the receiver room, there are some pretty good receivers who have come there and boogied and done quite well. In fact, I was watching shocker, second Cowboys reference the other night, and Jalen Gill was playing for the Chargers. And so I believe Jalen Gill left after 1 year, went to Boston College, and he's still got a shot at the league. So Westerville Star kind of got it done. All right, I guess we can.
And speaking of the transfers you mentioned, Dan, it's coming up. It's been coming up that Jerome Miles, Phillip Bell, could they both end up at Ohio State? And then you got Preston Bowman. Now, that's the three guys right now when you're talking about Ohio State getting another wide receiver or two. I don't like to say never in recruiting, but you got to think NIL here too. They've already got Quincy Porter. They're not going to, as we've talked about, stack great wide receivers on great wide receivers, as you just referred to, Dan. They tend to transfer. You got to have some developmental guys. So while I don't like to say never, I just don't see it working out NIL-wise that they would have Quincy Porter, Phillip Bell, and Jerome Miles if they could get them all three in the class, because they're not going to spend all their money on just wide receivers, so to speak. They're going to spread it out a little bit, and I think that's a wise strategy that they're going to now. The developmental guys aren't expecting to play right now and get the big money, and they're not going to transfer right away if they don't play in their first year.
Very good point, Bill. Very good point. Yeah, we're talking about Jalen Gill here. Brass Tacks coached him in the 8th grade, so you get some of the credit. I'm sure. Hopefully, you get some free tickets if he makes the Chargers and they come Ohio way. Holy cow! I was going to say San Diego again. I cannot get that out of my mind. That's the one team that's moved, by the way, that I still say I can't get that right. I still call them the San Diego Chargers. So sue me. Let's get to the Braylon Newcomb question, because I actually talked about this with the guys before this. Braylon Newcomb, Spider Sillery asked about the receiver who plays with Tavien St Clair at Bell Fountain. So, quick story, and I know what everyone wants to hear about more of, my kids. So, when my youngest kid was in the 2nd grade, he played AAU basketball, and it looked like rugby, but there were a bunch of, tough little dudes out there. One of them was Braylon Newcomb. Another one was my guy, Evan Gentili, who stars at Fairmont High School. Bunch of dudes on there. Braylon, I think he played hoops at Centerville as he was coming up the ladder, and was a really good, I know he caught a game-winning touchdown as a sophomore, and kind of was an option guy. I think he played even some quarterback. And so I've always kind of tried to follow the dudes, and I didn't know where he was. And I looked at the roster for Centerville to show he wasn't on there. In the Dayton Daily News on Monday, they had stars of the weekend. First star, Tavien St Clair. Second star, wide receiver at Bell Fountain, Braylon Newcomb. So we were talking about this before the show. I don't know if anybody in the history of football has ever transferred for football reasons from Centerville to Bell Fountain. But that is impact. If you want to talk about Tavien St Clair, I believe Braylon had 13 catches for 235 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's a good spot. I knew that was going to happen. My family has never been happier about the fact that Brad is a celebrity. I just want to tell you this. Okay? I'm serious. They've never been more proud of me for this podcast. They really don't even like the podcast unless Brad's on it. But yes, Braylon Newcomb, I'm not sure what type of prospect he was. I guess he has a chance to be a slot guy. Mark, maybe you can take a look at him at some point.
Yeah, being a sophomore last year, you're really not on the radar.
He's a senior now.
He's a senior now? Okay. Yeah. I thought he was a
year. That's why
young.
I was surprised, though. Usually transferring after your junior year when you're at a powerhouse like Centerville is not that common. But I will tell you this. You know who does not play at Centerville? Tavien St Clair. So I get it, man. Bill, your thoughts on that move? Your thoughts on Tavien St Clair and everyone kind of complaining about his level of play. We had a thread up here one point in the summer that someone said, why wasn't he dominating? He's been pretty dominant in high school. Your thoughts, Brad? Brad. Good Lord. Bill. Got that on the brain.
Yeah, I've been to, 3 or 4 Tavien St Clair games, at least over the last couple of seasons. Seen him in camps many times. Belle Fountain has had a good team, but a lot of that success has been because of, not all of it, but a lot of it because of Tavien St Clair. And they lost some guys from their team last year that was a good team. They went, I think they lost right before making the Final Four in the state playoffs, if I remember right. In fact, I might have been at that game now that I think about it. But they lost some guys, and they've replenished. And getting a kid like that, that's a great way to replenish your roster. I think Tavien tweeted out something about him this past weekend after his big game. So they're good. They're going to be a solid team. Are they Lakewood St. Edwards? No.
Holy cow!
Or
are the Browns Lakewood St. Edward? Go ahead.
Or for that, Massillon? No. But they're going to be a solid team again. And with Tavien there, they're going to be competitive pretty much every game. London's in their league, and they have a good team. Plain City, Jonathan Alder's in their league. They have a good team.
Good.
I think I saw them play both of those teams last year. I know I saw them play against Jonathan Alder, and I may have seen them play. They played London twice. They played him in the playoffs as well. Yeah. Got beat by him at the beginning of early in the season by a lot, and then came back and beat London in the playoffs. So if I'm not mistaken, when you have Tavien St Clair, that can help your incoming recruiting class, so to speak.
And for those people who are worried about Tavien St Clair's quality of play, I'm sorry, the chat. Look, he's been to every camp and the Elite 11. You saw him at the Elite 11. Those guys, come on, man. This is not like he's not sliding through here and fooled Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and these guys. They're like, man, look at how he crushed at Belle Fountain. I think the Ohio State staff, I believe, has the ability to put everything in context. So I'm not super worried about that.
Yeah, and adding to that, there was some possibility. There was some talk, and I'm not saying that it was Tavien and his family, but there was some talk about him playing somewhere else his senior year. They obviously are at Belle Fountain and will finish at Belle Fountain, and Ohio State really felt like there's no need for you to go anywhere else if you don't want to. As you said, Dan, they know how good Tavien is. They know he's played against great competition in the 7-on-7, all that kind of stuff, camps and all that. There was no really need for him to go anywhere else but Belle Fountain.
Well, I'm pretty sure the backup quarterback at Belle Fountain is Rain St. Clair. So let's follow that one.
He is a freshman.
Arguably, Tavien St. Clair is a good pro sports name. Rain St. Clair, REIGN St. Clair, is an all-time sports name. That is just awesome. And
by the way, Belle Fountain is not a Division VI school, by the way. People are kind of thinking like, oh, it's a tiny school. It is not a tiny school. I think they're Division II, if I'm not mistaken.
I knew you were going to say that. They are Division II if you go by the old school. I'm pretty sure all the divisions changed this year. I know they did in basketball. Regardless, Belle Fountain could play the guys from the mean streets at Oakwood at some point, so they're in a rough division for sure there. All right, a couple more things, Bill. I want to go over who is headed here to visit for the Akron game before we get into Mark's video. We saw Maxwell, Riley, Storm Miller, and Carter Lowe over the weekend. We have exclusive video of that. But first, William, who will join many of us in Columbus this weekend?
Well, I'm going to have more on that on Thursday because I typically don't try to pin things down this early because things change so much. When kids talk about visiting games, it's kind of I don't want to say it's 50-50, but a lot of times they'll say, well, I think I'm going to get a game and get to this game and they don't make it. And a lot of times they'll decide at the last minute. So I try to do most of that work later in the week. But a couple important names to know for sure. Chris Henry Jr. is planning to be at the game. Well, why is that important? He's already committed. Well, he's also got everybody still trying to change his mind. That's why it's important. And he can do recruiting while he's here. He has told me on more than one occasion that he is working very diligently and hard to help recruit for Ohio State for 2026. So he's planning to be at the game. And by the way, his wide receiver teammate at Mater Dei, Caden Wyatt Dixon, is trying to get to the game as well. He's a 2026 guy. And then another name to certainly be aware of is Jaden Ricketts. He is the wide receiver from Watkins Memorial, and he has Ohio State at the top of his list. So that is a name. I'm not going to say he's on necessarily commitment watch this weekend, but he actually told me this morning he will be at the game. So something to keep in mind.
Tavien St Clair is the best small school Ohio QB since Bobby Hoying. Bobby Hoying's cousins live in my town, and their kids are going to erase all my kids' records from the basketball record book. So it passes on for sure. All right, Marcus, talk to me about what you did this past weekend, and I will get you queued up here.
There you go. Well, Bill and I, of course, are out on the road, and we're going to start off with Bill's footage first. You got to see Maxwell Riley, and I think we're maybe just going to preview a little bit of this because this released later today. But as you can see, Maxwell looks as big and as strong as ever. I mean, his feet right there, that change of direction. He really looks good. As we say, he's got good feet. He kind of stumbles there. It's kind of ironic. But, yeah, he's looking like he is finally growing into his
illegal
body.
hands to the face, Mark.
Yeah, we've been watching him since he was a freshman, and now you're seeing him in more of his man size, growing out of that, little kid phase. So, yeah, definitely has the punch. That's actually Storm Miller rushing against him there, number 7. Now we're watching Storm. Look at that acceleration to the tackle. He looks like he's got a little twitch to him and a little burst. This next play, he's going to change direction. And what's cool about it is he doesn't chase the running back. He goes for the angle where that kid's going to be. I mean, what a smart, instinctive play to say, okay, I'll give you a couple yards, but that's all you're getting. So I kind of liked his football IQ on that. And here's Carter. Carter has been absolutely massive forever. I mean, that was like the Red Sea parting there when he caved that guy inside. You see how much power he has in his legs and his butt. I mean, that's we've always said his run blocking. I mean, the shock right there of a punch.
That was my favorite thing I've seen.
Yeah, I think he's playing left tackle, and last year he was flip-flopping, but he has the feet and pass protection. I have a few clips here as you see him get back, and when he anchors down, he's one of those guys that'll widen out that pocket for you and give that quarterback a little bit of a comfortable feeling as he sits back there. So, Bill, we picked 3 great guys to start off with week 1, 3 high quality, pretty much 5-star going to be guys for Ohio. Next week I think we're going to be on the road. I don't think we're going to tell you where we're going until Thursday, but expect this type of coverage every week out of Bill and I.
And but I got to tell you a little story about Storm Miller. I think this is, you talk about kids that are stars in high school and all that, and maybe they can be prima donnas or whatever. Storm Miller's not a prima donna. He is anything but. In fact, those 2 kids that I saw on Friday night, Storm Miller and Maxwell Riley, those are kids you want in your program. They are not only great football players, but they are outstanding young men. Couldn't be more impressed. Sometimes I wonder, talk about those 2, where are they more impressive, on the field or off the field? I mean, they really are. The story about Storm Miller, so I'm talking to him after the game, and one of the first things he says, I complimented him how well he played and all that, and even though his team lost, he had a heck of a game. Complimented on how well his team played and everything, and about the first thing he said was, he said, I felt like I could have done a little bit better and all, and he said, what did you think? He said, where can I improve? What do I need to do? So he's asking me those questions right after the game, and a lot of high school kids, trust me, that's not the first thing that they're thinking about. How can they get better? What did you see that I did and didn't do well, et cetera, et cetera?
If your child is being recruited, Bill, none of your children are any being recruited anymore. Grandchildren, I heard there have been some calls about, but I digress. If your child is being recruited and the recruiting coach says to your child, is there anything else you want to ask me? What Bill just told you is what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say, where can I get better? What do I need to do to get better? You know what I'm saying? What next time you come back to see me, what do you want to see? That kind of thing. I know a major basketball player who said that to a coach, and the coach said, you're a power player going right, and you're soft and finesse going left. When I come back, you better be power going left. And he was. So they know what they want. And if they're recruiting you, they might be candying you a little bit so you can get the truth out of them. All right. I think we're almost done here, guys. What do you think? Almost at 40 minutes. Let's see if there's any more questions. I believe the vibe there was from someone was that Maxwell Riley is a guard with the feet of a tackle. I don't think anybody could have thought Carter Lowe was a guard.
That might have been, he might have been saying that about Lowe. I'll take this. I'll take his point on it because those guys are so massive. They look like the road grading guards, and I think his next comment was with the feet of a tackle. So he does have that powerful. A lot of times that tackle body's that lean, linear type thing. You don't see that big butt and legs. That's where you see those guards. So Carter Lowe and even Maxwell Riley, as he gets bigger. I mean, we just looked at them both. Carter was a little bigger. But Maxwell, give him another year and he puts on another 20 pounds, he may start looking Carter Lowe-esque. But I get Brass's point. Yeah, that
Brass meant Lowe. I apologize. I got that wrong.
That's when he said that's what I thought too, because of the lower body of Carter. I mean, it's funny to say that I go to high school football games and stare at the butts of 17-year-old boys, but that's what I do. Yeah. That'll be clipped and taken out of context, but yeah, and Carter Lowe has, for an offensive lineman, one of the most attractive lower bodies you can get because you want to carry as much weight as you can in a lower center of gravity. In your legs and in your butt, that's great weight to have. Being top heavy, the days of the lineman with the beer belly and being over, extended, those guys get off balance and off their center of gravity pretty easy, and you see them fall over the blocks or fall over their feet. Carter's got the weight where you want it.
And by the way, a lot of questions about Maxwell Riley's height. And if you haven't watched the interview I did on Bucknuts with Maxwell Riley after the game, tell us a little bit about the height dilemma, so to speak, where some kids you don't know exactly the height of kids. And Maxwell Riley talks about, he went to this place. He went to Ohio State and was measured, I think he said, at 6'4.5". He went somewhere else and was measured at 6'5". He went another place and he was measured at 6'4". So even he knows that he's getting measured all these different heights at different places. So when you say heights, you just got to kind of take everything with a grain of salt. And by the way, Maxwell Riley's dad is 6'8", and he did grow late. So whether he's 6'4", 6'4.5", or 6'5" right now, he's only a junior in high school. His dad grew some in college. Maxwell Riley may be 6'6" or so before he's all done.
Does he have any younger brothers, Bill?
What's that?
Does he have any younger brothers?
I don't know the answer to that one. Not that I know of, but I don't know for sure on that one.
And I'll confer that height thing. My son went to camps, 4 weeks in a row, 4 different heights.
I was going to say.
Yeah. Like he got like the one that was over 6 foot, and that's the one he saved. But he had a 5'11 3/4, and it is funny how, depending on maybe how you stand up on your toes or get on your heel or stretch out your body or just, different things. But yeah, it was definitely funny to see that.
As a dad who spent many, many nights staring at the ceiling and praying for height and making sure his son hung on the pull-up bar in the backyard, Bobby Brady style, you can add when you get to college, they let you add an inch to your height. And here's the problem. People then come up to you and say, dude, you're not blank. My son was listed at a certain height. During the actual broadcast of the game, the announcer was like, I don't think he's that tall. Not very nice. Let's go rapid fire here, William, because there's some questions adding at the end. Mello, Mark's eldest son is a big-time quarterback. What about the younger one?
Quarterback.
All right.
Duly cursed.
Yeah, I was gonna say no competition in that household. Just make sure you write down everything you do with your eldest, because if you don't do it for your youngest, he won't tell you about it. He'll just say it in therapy in 20 years. All right, let's get to this. What happened there? Oh no. Oh, that was a mistake. I'm sorry. CD Lamb in the house. William. Cam St. Prix. Tavien Hitter. Hider. Even better. Tavien Hider, running back.
Speaking of height.
Talking height.
Yeah.
Tavien Hider. I don't even know how tall he is. I know he's a good running back, William. Take it from there. We haven't really talked about him a lot. Maybe introduce him quickly, where he's from, size, height, weight, what you think of him, and then where Ohio State stands.
I did a story on him probably a week, 2 weeks ago, maybe. Has Ohio State as one of his top choices. He's one of the country's top 2026 running backs. And he has been to Ohio State. He is going to be I was trying to think if he did not know when I spoke to him when he would be at Ohio State again. I'm trying to look here real quick if I remember right. And he didn't know for sure when he'll be at Ohio State again, but he told me he will be at Ohio State for a game this season. Has Ohio State as one of his top choices. He's about 6 foot tall, about 200 pounds. He's the number 1 and number 2 running back in the country, I believe, in the composite. I think he's the number 1 running back in the composite, and he is from Woodbury Forest, Virginia. And he's a guy that, like I said, Ohio State has a legitimate chance to get him. He is developing a very good relationship with Ohio State running backs coach Carlos Laughlin.
Does he attend Woodbury Forest?
Yeah, he's at Woodbury Forest High School.
Woodbury Forest is actually a private school, prep school. I think he's from Mineral, Virginia. Now, I don't know, but I think that's where, you guys remember the Jones brothers, Thomas Jones and Julius Jones? They were from Big Stone Gap, Virginia. I think that's near Mineral, but that's country. The high school we're talking about is a private school in the Richmond area. Very good school. All right. Bingo. There we go, Cam. See, finally I got something right. Took me almost took 42 minutes. See, not in the first 40. We showed the photo of Mark's son's injury. I'd put it back up there, but I haven't eaten yet. And you can just rewind. Man, that I will say this. That ruined my evening, man, when I got that picture. Good Lord. That's just anyway. All right. Last question, William. The great Tavien St Clair mentioned something in the mix for possibly flipping Micah DeBose. Is he just talking, or do you think it's possible?
Well, they are recruiting him still. They have been recruiting him still. When I say they, I mean Ohio State. He is committed to Alabama. He lives in Alabama. Seems pretty content. I'm going to emphasize, seems pretty content with his commitment. And I did speak with somebody pretty close to Micah, who said that, don't rule Ohio State out, but he said the percentages are not with the Buckeyes. He said that he put it at maybe close to 90% that in the end he signs with Alabama, but there's still a long way to go. Signing does not start until early December, so there's a ways to go on that one. It's just that it will not be an easy flip, even though he is from Cleveland and all that, and made an official visit to Ohio State. It will not be an easy flip to get him away from Alabama.
All right. Christopher Sowers asks, Bill, heard anything on the Harris twin front, Weddington High School? We had this in the boarding house, and then I believe Anna Adams rolled a crystal ball towards Ohio State for Aiden Harris. I believe the higher rated of the two twins, but both are excellent and kicked butt in their first week. Bill, am I on point with that?
Yeah. In fact, I'll have my today, at some point on Bucknuts, I'll have my wrap up of how all the Ohio State commitments did this past weekend. If their teams won, lost, how each one of them did. Who were stars. And by the way, Eli Lee made a mere 18 tackles against a very, very good team from your neck of the woods, Dan. And that team happened to beat, unfortunately for Akron Hopen, happened to win Severn. They're from, I can't think of Severn.
Severn Park?
That beat
Severn
Akron.
School?
But anyway, Trajan Odom had a good game. Aiden Harris had a good game. And Drew Harris also is a very good defensive lineman on that team. So Aiden Harris, as you mentioned, Dan, is the number one guy there, I would say, of the juniors. They're 2026 kids. He's about 6'3", 240, and he does like Ohio State a lot, I'll say that.
Now that my brain is functioning, my guess is that Akron-Hoban lost to Archbishop Spalding of Severn, Maryland.
Yep, they lost to Spalding and two national powerhouse teams, Spalding and Akron-Hoban. 28-14 was the score. Spalding won.
And in terms of gratuitous information you don't need, Archbishop Spalding, most famous alum, Rudy Gay. But we digress. All right, I'm going to let these guys go. Thank you very much to the Dean and Mark, and I'm going to read our last ad. For those of you who stuck through this and are listening to this ad, you are the best of the Bucknutters, and you should smell good. So for that, what do? Mando. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. This is great stuff. Whole body deodorant. It'll be your best friend this summer. Clinically proven. You can put it anywhere. Controls odor for 72 hours. You're out for the weekend. You're going to see 2 games. You'll smell great for both. Safe for the whole body. You know your body. Stop odor before it starts. American made. 4 cologne quality scents. These sound like Bucknutter scents right here. Bourbon Leather, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and Clover Woods. So we got a special offer right now. New customers get $5 off Mando's best-selling starter pack with code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. Appreciate y'all stopping by. Have a good one, Bucknutters.